Hello mortals, it is me, Insanely ADD, here with an analysis video on my favorite unskippable cutscene activator, Papyrus Undertale. I was watching a Kara analysis video when it occurred to me that no one has actually made a long-form, comprehensive character analysis of Papyrus' character. I have only seen 2 videos analyzing Papyrus' character, one by my friend Dorked, which is a really good analysis and you should watch it, then another video which did a very poor job and was full of weird hyperbolic statements and things that just aren't true, which detracted from the analysis and gave a very skewed perception of who Papyrus is according to the writer. This was originally going to be a section of a mega theory video I'm making, but I realized as I was watching the Kara analysis video that if I want to do Papyrus justice, then I'm going to need to dedicate an insane amount of time to him, which would look crazy compared to the rest of the theory. So here I am. Papyrus is a character that I relate to a lot for a few reasons. For starters, I finally got my diagnosis. I am autistic. And Papyrus absolutely is as well. I relate to his quirks, his strong convictions, and his loneliness. Before becoming a Papyrus fan, I had no friends. I moved around a lot when I was younger, and I couldn't remember phone numbers, addresses, or if I had them saved, I would forget to send them letters or call. I have no childhood friends, and every online friend I have was made after I got into Undertale, and consequently, Papyrus. When you are about to face Papyrus in the pacifist route, he says, he never wonders what having lots of friends is like. It is such an obvious lie. The way Papyrus wanders around town, being a sincere and kind person to everyone he meets, while most people in town are hard-pressed to even remember his name, is a feeling I know. There is a holiday that is popular in this fandom, primarily on Tumblr, called Let Papyrus Say Fuck Day, which is a celebration of treating Papyrus like a grown man, but most people do not recognize where it came from. Well, it's me. I made it. And I honestly was not expecting so many people to be interested in participating, but it makes me happy how many people were invested just from my, unserious Tumblr post. Papyrus is much the same in that there are certain things Papyrus says in various interactions of phone calls that are quoted and referenced by other people, but the text surrounding that information is largely unknown in comparison for some reason. For instance, there is a call that people know about because it is one of the pieces of evidence that people use to claim Sans is a scientist, where Papyrus says that Sans loves outer space and sci-fi, but the rest of this call is obscure in comparison, or at least it feels that way, because while the call is used to acknowledge Sans' interest in science, it is rarely ever used to point out that Papyrus is aware Sans isn't honest and doesn't talk about things. Quote, yeah, Sans never tells anybody anything. There are also many instances in this game where it feels like Papyrus is lying about stuff, where he makes himself out to be less intelligent than he actually is, but this is contradicted by other interactions. But everyone takes the instances of Papyrus acting less intelligent at face value, while the contradictory scenes are almost never acknowledged. You will obviously know Papyrus is confused about the sun during the true pacifist ending, since people bring it up constantly as evidence that Papyrus isn't from Deltarune. But did you remember that this is contradicted by his hangout, which is mandatory for even reaching this ending? Where he says that he wants to feel the wind in his hair and the sun on his skin, obviously knowing what the sun is through the context of the sentence. And don't forget it's not Papyrus who says he's never seen a human, it's Sans, who the fandom knows is a lying liar who hides stuff and lies. But Papyrus is a liar too. He's not even a good liar. What I'm getting at here is that Papyrus is a mystery. What most people know about Papyrus are surface-level readings of his character, or that people don't bother to question the inconsistencies and peculiarities of his character. I could go on tangents forever about what it all means, the different readings, the niche Papyrus fan-specific theories for why him always wearing his gloves is relevant and reinforced detail, for what Flowey means when he says Papyrus is one of the most interesting characters, and why Papyrus is the only character tied up with double the vines of everyone else during the true pacifist fight opener. But this is an analysis. I will try to keep it on topic. I have been in this fandom since 2015, and man, I have seen some shit. I genuinely wouldn't wish what this fandom has done and continues to do to my favorite character and my worst enemy's favorite character. My enemy, however. So I don't want to have to start this analysis from a defensive position, but it's sort of hard not to, as even someone with a casual interest in this fandom will have been inevitably exposed to mischaracterizations and tropes and misconceptions about Papyrus. The futility of fanon. So let's start there. People think things for a reason. As someone who is now diagnosed, it's been a sort of hobby of mine to analyze the concepts and stories fandom will hold onto and make into unofficial truths of the media. It started way back when I first got into fandoms in 2009. I hunted down every fanfic I could for Invader Zim and was confused by how many of them seemed so separate from the source material that I enjoyed. It didn't make any sense to me. I was vehemently against shipping of any kind because it was just totally incongruous with the tone of the source material, which has never really changed. I think I will only ever ship myself with canon characters or ship canon ships for the rest of my life. I moved from there to Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, and then creepypastas. I read so many reader inserts for that one, and at a certain point I knew the exact formula about 95% of those fics would use back then. You are a teenage girl with comically abusive or dead parents, and also comically evil bullies. The author will link to Hot Topic to tell you exactly what you're wearing. Somehow, creepypastas exist as stories and are also real. One will sneak into your room and tell you how cool you are. Either you kill your parents and or bullies, or your sexy new murder freak boyfriend does it. Maybe you do it together. Keep first date ideas. Suddenly, Slenderman owns property in the woods where all these serial killers live, and you go to live there too, but we do not talk about that one anymore. As you can see, my memory of the formula is intact, even though it has been over a decade. I was briefly into FNAF, but not long enough to pick up on any of that, and from my outside perspective, it feels difficult to hold on to any tropes when the source material keeps transforming what is real like a Digimon, which is to say, wildly and without reason. And then, Undertale. This is where I have been ever since, though I have recently gotten very into the Owl House. I read reader inserts daily until January of 2023, and I only stopped because it was the Papyrus X Reader section. Absolutely soul-crushing to go there every single night before bed to see there's any new stories, only to see 5 new harem fics appear from the fucking mist. And if you try to give them a chance, Papyrus shows up for 5 seconds to say hi, which prompts the reader to think, what an innocent cinnamon roll! Which is a crazy thing to think about a stranger you just met. Anyways, Papyrus disappears, and you're jerked along by the tantalizing idea that you could possibly hold hands with Papyrus Undertale, who is written as kind and loving and respecting of boundaries, while the author beats the shit out of you with her obvious bias for Sans Undertale, or even worse, Sans Underfell, whose heinous actions would be framed for pure romantic villain fodder if they came from not him. He just met you, and now he's threatening to beat the shit out of anyone and everyone who talks to you. He's jealous of strangers over you spending time with them. He's stalking you. He's aggressive to you. What the fuck is wrong with him? This isn't a bad boy. This is a trash boy. Put that sweaty little bitch in the garbage disposal and then give me Papyrus. All this to say, I have seen a lot of Fanon Papyrus, so I should be able to give you the full picture of Fanon Papyrus and why people think of him the way that they do. So who is Fanon Papyrus? What is his personality? What are his motivations, his aspirations? What is important to him? If I had to describe his personality, I would say that he is nice. Nice and oblivious. His motivations are to make people around him happy. He aspires to make spaghetti, or pasta in general, until the end of time. His friends are important to him. You may encounter more specific flavors of this, like he is a golden retriever of a man, or he's really shy about romance. He will never be violent, ever, and he's a permanent supporting character. He exists for other people and other people alone. Papyrus in Fanon is defined by his relationships to other people. His relationship with his brother, who is tortured by almost always remembering a no mercy route and watching his brother die. His relationship with Undyne, where he's a loyal wingman, always there to cheer on his boss, and total bestie. People almost never write about Papyrus and Alphys' relationship unless they have a greater grasp on his character, so skip. The same applies to Asgore, so skip. Papyrus' relationship with Toriel is basically that she is his mom, even in interpretations where she's dating Sans. Papyrus' relationship with Mettaton, which is conjured from whole cloth as they do not interact canonically, but they are usually written to be lovers, or for Papyrus to have a big fat gay crush on Mettaton, which Sans is shoving himself into to protect Papyrus, his adult brother, from Mettaton, who is usually defanged enough in Fanon to be an extremely milquetoast choice for love interest. But who is Fanon Papyrus outside of his relationships to other people? What is left for him when you remove everyone around him? What would he be like if he went on a solo road trip thousands of miles from everybody? He would be nice. He would be pleasant. He would talk about himself and how great he is. He would probably get robbed because he is written as naive to the point of parody. There is nothing else. His place in most of the stories of Fanon is to prop up someone else, almost always Sans, and then he dies, or he has died previously, or Sans kills him. This is if he exists at all, though this lack of existing in most of Fanon problem is not exclusive to Papyrus. So, how did we get here? Well, as is usually the case every time this happens anywhere, the fandom took a few personality traits that he does exhibit and decided that 5% is as good as 100% accuracy, which then became a game of telephone, because people got into the fandom for things in the fandom and not the game, which drifted him further from the source material. The exaggeration became a caricature, which then became an extraction, and now a parody of a shadow of a cardboard cutout of what Papyrus actually is. And this is with me not even getting in-depth about the weird way that certain tropes are used with Papyrus, tropes usually associated with being shitty to women characters, like fridging, only existing for other people, needing to be protected because they're too weak to protect themselves, and being comically innocent. Though I feel like the reasoning for the use of these tropes is not necessarily to paint Papyrus as a woman, but because they're also tropes used against disabled people, though I wouldn't say that people are using these tropes with intention. Like I said, Papyrus in Fanon is a Dadaist distortion of the truth. People are parodying what other people wrote and are depicting. No, the truth is not that the whole Undertale fandom is comically ableist to disabled people. It's so much more banal. A lot of people do not examine their biases against disabled people or consume fan content critically enough for it to register that a lot of the ways Papyrus is treated align with ableist tropes. This is except for people who've been treated that way in real life and relate to Papyrus, such as myself and many of my friends. When I initially wrote this script, I dedicated over 1,000 words to talking about my experiences growing up dealing with ableism, all in service to showing the people who will be listening the ways that Papyrus is aspirational and strong in contrast to how he is portrayed. Almost every person I've met who relates to Papyrus a lot and hates his fanon is autistic, undiagnosed, or has a different disability. Yes, I know autism is not always considered by people who have it to be disabling at all, but it is a disability under law and is also more succinct to describe like this. Canon is compassion. Okay then, so what is Papyrus's canonical personality? What are his motivations, his aspirations? What is important to him? Canonically, Papyrus is a man racked with conflict. Conflict between his deepest desires and his own moral code. He outwardly desires popularity and friendship, but only because when he really wants is recognition. He wants acknowledgement. Papyrus is lonely. Bone-chillingly lonely. His deepest self is a man who doesn't see Undyne as a friend, since at the end of his hangout with him he will say, "Yeah, let's go make friends with Undyne," which means he is including himself. Up until Undyne is befriended, he only ever refers to her as his boss. If you get far enough that you can see the core in the background and you haven't yet befriended Undyne and you call Papyrus, he will say, "The core? You're getting close, huh?" And then his expression shifts to his sad face, a face he usually only makes in the neutral endings, specifically when he talks about Undyne being missing in the King Mettaton ending, after Sans leaves in his King ending, and when he talks about how depressed Undyne is in one of the Queen Toriel endings. This is a sprite reserved almost exclusively for some of the most harrowing and heartbreaking things Papyrus can experience. In every case it has to do with loss. Losing his people as a leader, Undyne losing her spark, her energy, Undyne being gone. And with this phone call, he's losing his only friend besides Flowey. That's another thing with fanon. Sans has a weird habit of stealing traits from other characters. People make it so he survived the war when the Dreamers and Gerson are standing right there. People make it so he hates humans when Undyne is right there. People sometimes theorize that he was the one who made Mettaton's body when... do I even need to say it? Fanon Sans enjoyers have stolen a lot from Papyrus. Nightmares? Papyrus mentions having them and no one else does, but there's one thing Papyrus has stolen from Sans and fanon. People give Papyrus friends. Papyrus is the popular one. Papyrus is the one with a sprawling support system, while Sans has maybe one real friend. You could argue that all of the social connections Sans canonically has are not very deep, which could very well be true. But the fact of the matter is, when Sans walks into Grilby's, everybody knows his name. If he were to walk around Snowdin talking to all the NPCs, not a single one of them mention Papyrus by name, even when they refer to him. Considering Papyrus talks in the third person on occasion, it feels impossible to have missed it. Does anyone know his name? Does he talk in the third person so maybe they will remember it? So when he meets you, the player, through Frisk, the character, the first thing he sees is a means to an end. He believes if he captures Frisk, then he will be rewarded with the popularity and friends that he so badly wants. As he gets to know them, he begins to realize that his goal is in opposition to his own beliefs. His beliefs being his personal moral code. He literally says that he thinks even the worst person can change if they just try. But outside of that particular route, he also shows a greater tendency for mercy, not pacifism. People in this fandom really misuse the term, but pacifism is about not fighting, not causing harm as much as possible. Papyrus is still fine with beating your ass unconscious and throwing you in his shed with a bowl of dog food, but he will heal you right before and after his fight, and he can have attacks that do 0 damage when you're too low on health to take a hit without dying. Papyrus enjoys fighting, but he will never let it go far enough to seriously hurt someone. Through his interactions with Frisk, he begins to pull back from his deep desire for recognition and his aching longing for friendship, which was driving him to pursue a goal that he realizes has come into conflict with his own morals, so he switches gears, subtly at first, sabotaging his own puzzles to make them easier and more fair for Frisk, disengaging them and compensating for a power imbalance by healing Frisk before and after his fight and going really easy on them. Finally, he has a hangout with Frisk where he befriends them. He hasn't gotten any sweeping praise and validation he desired, but now he has a friend, someone who he has decided is worth protecting, all while remaining true to himself. A reoccurring theme in Toby's characters is them having the negative trait of avoidance. Toriel ran away and secluded herself in Undertale because she, at the time, could not confront Asgore. In Deltarune, she avoids him altogether, unless ambushed, which is bad and creepy, by the way, obviously. At which point, she is pushed into a confrontation, but even with the opportunity in front of her to tell him to stop, she runs away. Toriel, if you need someone there for moral support while you tell your ex-husband to fuck off, I am here for you. Asgore is avoidant because instead of taking charge in his plan and actively seeking out souls to collect to free to his people, he meekly hides in his castle praying that another human will never come. In Deltarune, Asgore causes conflicts by impeding on Toriel's life, but this is because he cannot face the reality that his life has changed, and it will never be what it used to, so he acts like it's a temporary setback. He avoids confronting reality. Alphys in Undertale has shut herself away, unable to face the families of the people she experimented on, unable to cope with the truth and gravity of her actions. She doesn't answer anyone's calls or letters, she can't handle the questions. In Undertale, Mettaton runs away from the person he used to be, leaving his friends and family feeling abandoned, and in his plan to steal Frisk's soul so he can go onto the surface to pursue fame there, he is running further away from everything he's ever known, everything he's ever been. In Undertale, Sans is never direct. He dodges questions and avoids being honest, emotionally, and about himself. He can't take things seriously because if he does, it would necessitate him confronting things about himself that he might not like to see in the proverbial light of day. In Deltarune, Sans can't even look when Asgore comes into his store to bother Toriel and tries to insert himself back into her life. He knows his brother is lonely in Deltarune, and instead of doing something about it himself, he asks the kid or the lady he thinks is attracted to hang out with him, and then doesn't bring it up again unless you do, at which point he puts it off. Papyrus in Undertale never tells Undyne that Frisk is his friend until they are about to become hers too. She confronts him while you hide in the grass, and Papyrus weakly defends you but relents to her. He will say he hates Grobies and Grease until Undyne says she likes it. Whenever Sans is in the call, Papyrus will say things that paint him as dumber than he really is, pretending not to know what ice cream or a laboratory are, which are both contradicted in other phone calls. He does this alone as well, but most of these instances are when Sans is around. He conforms parts of himself to please those that he cares about, acting differently in ways I can only theorize are meant to be more appealing to the given person. I think this comes back to his loneliness. He is afraid even the meager amount of people he's close to will suddenly not enjoy his presence if he doesn't agree to everything they do. He seems to not take cartoons, especially anime, seriously, calling them cartoons for babies and making baby noises and saying that's the deep emotions that anime makes you feel. The follow-up is Papyrus asking with a nervous expression if Undyne likes anime. Now, what motivates Papyrus? Papyrus is very goal-oriented. He is motivated for self-improvement, a goal of his that is implied through how he says, everyone can be a good person if they try, and me, I hardly have to try at all. As well as how at the end of the Alphys hangout, Undyne selected Papyrus to be the one to teach Alphys how to improve herself. He is motivated to improve himself and his life, not because he is blind to what is wrong with himself or the world, but because he is strongly aware of it. Papyrus arguably has the strongest convictions of almost any character in the game. His ability to make attacks that do 0 damage is a feature exclusive to him, and is an example of his strong moral code in action, since it is said that the effectiveness of monster attacks are based on intent. Toriel has absolutely no intent to kill you, but she still can by accident. Papyrus's focus, control, and intent are so razor-sharp in his fight because of his strong convictions and sense of right and wrong. This is not to denigrate Toriel. I just believe her example brings this idea into sharp focus. She very much doesn't want the human to be hurt and definitely not kill, but she still can accidentally kill you. She makes her attacks avoid you, but she cannot make them not hurt you. If she can cause accidental harm, then you have to wonder what is going on with Papyrus that makes him so adamant and immovable in his beliefs that he can do what he does. To me, Papyrus is aspirational. When Papyrus chooses to spare you in the no mercy route, it is the same as when you spare Undyne or Asgore. They could kill you. They probably have. But you choose to show kindness because you know they deserve it. In the moment you spare them, you show that you believe they can do better. Be better. Papyrus's encounter in the no mercy route is the perfect reflection of this. He sees someone who could kill him, who has harmed others, and he still decides that there is good in you. The choice to interpret his decision to spare you as foolish and naive points a strange self-loathing on you, the player. I do not believe that even with the harm that I have caused that I am beyond redemption. I can do better. I can be a better person even now. If you truly believe that Papyrus is foolish to see you as someone who can make better choices, then you inadvertently show that you do not believe yourself to be worth it. You believe you cannot improve. You think it's foolish for anyone to see the potential for improvement in you. Do you not see how harmful this is? This cartoon skeleton sees more good in you than you do. Meanwhile, Phantom Papyrus is someone who could not fold a piece of paper with the instructions printed on it. Phantom Papyrus is someone so oblivious that it's a miracle he somehow lived long enough to be killed by you in the first place. Nothing Phantom Papyrus does impacts anything unless it's something that happens to him. Papyrus is hurt to make Sans angry. Papyrus is killed to psychologically torture Sans. Papyrus is tortured by Flowey so he learns not to be so compassionate like a moron. Phantom Papyrus has no impact on anything ever. He could be replaced with a lamp with a knife in it or a hang in there kitty poster with a scarf pinned to it, and it is functionally identical. Fanon Papyrus has no agency. Fanon Papyrus is the fandom accepting the facade Papyrus puts up as his true face. That's right. The Papyrus most people in the fandom think is the true him is actually a ruse that you've all fallen for. On many occasions in the game, Papyrus lies by acting like he doesn't know things that he is shown knowing in other calls or interactions. In one call, he asks if you're on the toilet because of the running water around you, and then immediately asks what a toilet is. But sir, you literally just indicated so much implied knowledge about what a toilet is. How can you instantly turn around and act as though you know nothing? He does this many times over, claiming to not know what the sun is at the end of the game, but during his mandatory to even get to that ending hangout, he says he wants to drive a car down the highway, feeling the wind in his hair and the sun on his skin. Papyrus intentionally puts up a front like he knows less than he really does, and it's most prevalent when Sans is present. Like for instance, in the lab, his call will say that Sans will like the lab since he loves sci-fi stuff, especially when it's real. But in front of the lab, he will ask what it is with Sans there, who explains it's a laboratory, to which Papyrus says, "Labradory? Are there dogs in there?" Or something to that effect, which simultaneously paints him as ignorant of the purpose of a lab, while also implying a knowledge of the amalgamates, which is further reinforced by him saying the bag of dog food inside the lab looks familiar. Does this mean Papyrus is not genuinely kind or compassionate? No! He's full of so much love and compassion for people that it couldn't be fake. The thing that's fake is the idea of him being an obliviously useless idiot with no greater sense of self or self-awareness. He uses reverse psychology to manipulate Undyne into being your friend. He's interesting and deep enough of a person for Flowey to not be able to simply brush him off as an uninteresting idiot, even if he pretends that's true. Papyrus seems to almost never sleep and explicitly states he has nightmares. In the No Mercy route, if you spare Papyrus and go on his hangout at his room, he will check the box of attacks and he will say, "You surely would have been blasted," before cutting himself off, realizing that his special attack is missing from the box. This implies that Toby stole Papyrus' special attack, which is meant to be a Gaster Blaster, in every run. It also implies that though Papyrus is a compassionate and merciful person, he would be willing to pull out the literal big guns on you if you didn't back down in the No Mercy route, but we are deprived from seeing what that would have looked like because Toby ate his attack. Unrelated, I hope if hard mode ever becomes real, we get to see Papyrus' fight with Gaster Blasters. Even Undyne says Papyrus is really strong, and the only reason he's not in the guard is because of his refusal to kill. Even with Papyrus' strong moral code, he has several instances of saying things that are concerning or illegal, like how he implies he stole his dating/hangout book from the library, as in one phone call he says he doesn't know what a library card is, though this is another possible instance of him playing dumb about something so standard that there's no way he doesn't actually know what that is, though he does say he snagged the book. In addition to this, other odd things he mentions are how kids love dangerous bridges and deadly spikes. He directly says he wants to meet death in one phone call, and in fact shows no concern of his own death in the neutral run, where he will hold his own decapitated head and make jokes while quoting Hamlet before disintegrating into dust. In the neutral runs where you killed someone before your hangout with Undyne, she will say that she doesn't want to hang out with a murderer, to which Papyrus responds that he doesn't remember murdering anyone, but that he is a brutal kind of guy. In a way, the King Mettaton ending is one of the worst endings for Papyrus, as it's implied that Mettaton is imprisoning or even potentially murdering people who do not agree with his rule, since Papyrus works for him and has a nervous expression when explaining the disappearances. This implies he is aware of it. Papyrus has physics-altering powers like Sans, but whereas Sans can teleport, Papyrus can fly, glide, and hover, which he does in just as many, if not more instances as Sans. During the electricity maze, he slides backwards out of frame without moving his legs. When you solve the large exo puzzle shaped like his face, he is coded to slide sideways to stay in frame. The color tile puzzle, he slides along the floor while spinning without moving his feet. After the fight, he walks into the air and goes above you to walk back to his house. And during the hangout with Undyne, after he uses reverse psychology on her, his feet fly up and backwards like he's doing a front flip while moving backwards out of sight. Papyrus is also fully aware that people do not like his cooking, as if you say that you ate his spaghetti trap, he will say that no one has ever enjoyed his cooking before. But he also says in the first anniversary Q&A that he only makes spaghetti because it makes people happy, and he's never actually eaten it. This Q&A being where it's revealed his favorite food is the real-ass Quaker Oats dinosaur egg oatmeal in brown sugar flavor. Additionally, Papyrus says he knows Sans isn't honest about things, as in the phone call in front of Sans' telescope, Papyrus will say that Sans loves outer space and sci-fi stuff, and then follow it up with, "Oh, he never told you? Yeah, Sans never tells anybody anything." Papyrus is functionally the mayor of Snowdin, communicating about issues with the town to Undyne, building and managing the puzzles and traps around Snowdin, and in one of the canonical Pascus endings, he can become the ambassador for all monsters, as well as being one of the best rulers in the neutral ending where he is king. Papyrus is oddly important as he has more lines of dialogue than any other character in the game, with less than 400 lines behind the narrator themselves, and a continued emphasis on him in many of the Q&As and other out-of-game events. Killing only him creates an instant tonal shift in Snowdin, and is the equivalent of killing 10 non-main monsters for the impact it has on the ending, being the only thing Undyne needs to justify rallying the people to overthrow Toriel's peaceful and rightful claim to the throne. The only other ending where monsters will overthrow the ruler because of the death of a single monster is when you kill Undyne. Killing Mettaton causes a cascade of effects, but Toriel remains the ruler, and Toriel being killed makes Undyne the leader by default. And Papyrus' best friend is Flowey. In the only in-game instance where Flowey talks about his friendship with Papyrus, he says he's one of the better characters to mess with, and says it took a long time for him to get boring, before he makes an almost regretful face and says, yeah, as if he doesn't fully see Papyrus as a flat set of lines and canned responses like everyone else as he pretends. Another interesting and unspoken thing that we can see is that despite Flowey seemingly warning you about Sans being a run-ender, Papyrus is the one who he restrains with more vines than anyone else. Alphys, Toriel, Asgore, Undyne, and Sans are all tied up with just 2 vines, while Papyrus has 4 vines tied around him, which is odd and suspicious. Inevitably, some details here might just be oversight, but simultaneously, I have seen people give tremendous amounts of grace to other aspects of the game, and the idea that other details are a mistake are never even considered. It's not a mistake or coincidence that "but it refused" is both literal and a metaphor. It is not a mistake in specific rooms if you backtrack you can see Flowey duck back underground, implying that he's following you. It isn't a coincidence that 2 people in the Wishing Stone room are likely meant to be destined to Valhalla in an insane show of buried foreshadowing. It is not an accident that there are so many little details in this game that people will continue to notice for the first time until the end of time. The only pun I'm not certain was intentional was that the Ice Cream Guy is a Blue Bunny, which is an ice cream brand, but seeing as it's sold nationwide here in the US, the odds are good that it was on purpose. Papyrus is a sincerely compassionate person, a menace, a mystery, and hiding something. Papyrus is a complex character who deserves to be treated with the same level of seriousness as other characters from Undertale. He shouldn't be dismissed as a joke, and he shouldn't be ignored and treated as irrelevant when he is one of the most emphasized characters in the game. I'm tired of people making these complex theories about Sans where they analyze his atomized existence while doing no research and treating Papyrus as an afterthought. I'm tired of people treating Undertale as a beautifully well-thought-out masterpiece that only incidentally includes Papyrus, like he wandered on set and was included like a mistake. At the very least, I want people who theorize why Sans does this or that, or how he's important in this or that way, to stop letting their eyes glaze over whenever Sans talks about Papyrus. If you think Sans is a human, you can't just say that and not explain how Papyrus ties into this, because it puts a huge hole in your theory. If you think Sans is a Darkener, you can't just shrug off Papyrus' entire existence. If you theorize that Sans is from Deltarune, then you have to puzzle out how Papyrus is too. You have to come to a conclusion that makes sense for both of them. As Papyrus would say, stop being lazy and put some backbone into it. So, that was my analysis. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe. There's another video in the works, and please check out my previous video where I go over 101 facts about Papyrus. Thank you. Goodbye.